Hi guys, please like, share and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get updates on our new videos. Today I'm going to be going over Rambo Last Blood. Now, just a warning, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't watched it and you plan to, come off now and then come back to us after you've watched it. Okay, we're going to go through a little bit of the write-up and then some of the things about it, some of the facts, etc. Right, so Rambo travels to Mexico to save his adopted daughter, who has been kidnapped by a Mexican cartel and forced into prostitution. So yeah, that's the basic outline of the movie. There's a part I'll get to in a bit as to why the film's like this. And to be honest with you, it kind of makes for a better movie, I think. But like I say, I'll get to that part in my thoughts. So, right, so it was directed by Adrian Grunberg, produced by Avi Lerner, Kevin King Templeton, Yariv Lerner, and Les Weldon. Screenplay by Matthew Kirolnik and Sylvester Stallone. Sorry if I butchered some of them names. Story by Dan Gordon and Sylvester Stallone. So obviously Stallone had quite a bit to do with this film, which is not unusual. He quite often does with his movies. Starring Sylvester Stallone, Paz Vega, and Sergio Perez Mencheta. Yeah, I'll be honest. The cast in this, I don't think I actually recognised anyone except Sylvester Stallone. So it's one of them films where it didn't really rely on a known cast, and that, it didn't really take anything away from the story for me. So yeah, it was done well. So although they were relatively unknown actors, because they have done other things, just not things I've seen. So although they were relatively unknown, it was a good film, good acting. So the running time is 89 minutes. That's UK and US, I believe. I've heard that international it's longer. I'm not sure what version I've got of this, but I could have sworn it was longer than 89 minutes. Because the full length one that went international is 101 minutes. So I'm not sure what one I've got, but I could have sworn it was longer than 89 minutes. Budget was 50 million. Box office 91.5 million, so it did all right. Plans for a fifth film were announced on and off since 2008. It finally got announced in May 2018, and it did. It was on and off, and there's variations of how they were going to do it. I'll get into some of them in a bit. Was released in the US on September the 20th, 2019, to negative reviews, with criticism for the script, graphic violence, and accusations of racist and xenophobic attitudes towards Mexico. The graphic violence, I don't know why people got so funny about that, because it's a Rambo film. I mean, all Rambo films have got graphic violence. What did they think they was going to watch? And I didn't see any issues with the script. I thought it was perfectly fine for what it was. As far as the accusations against, like, basically Mexicans, well, he was doing the Mexican cartel. I don't really think there's any other way he could have done it. Regardless of who it was, it would have offended someone, I think. So, I mean, for example, he could have gone down the route of a different faction, like maybe a Russian mafia or an Albanian gang or whatever. Either way, it would have offended someone. So I don't think it would have mattered who he did, really. It would have offended someone. So, yeah. I mean, when I watched the film, I can't say either way. All I know is it was an enjoyable film as far as I'm concerned. So, in 2008, Stallone revealed that making a fifth film would depend on the fourth film doing well. Obviously, the fourth film came out in 2008, so it did depend on that, which we know it did. Obviously, it did. It did do well. It made over double what it cost, so it did well. And then I put here as a side note, I thought the fourth film was the best at that point, which I did. I actually thought when the fourth film come out, I remember being a bit worried. A lot of people were going around saying, "Oh, he's past it, he's too old," and all that lot. And it was concerning. It was like, well, is he going to be able to do what he did in the other films? But then when it come out, I mean, I would argue that the fourth film was better than all the other Rambos. So I wouldn't say that the fifth one is better than the fourth film, but it's a close second. I mean, I would actually say that the fifth one is better than probably one, two, and three, to be honest, because it is good. It is a good film. In 2008, Stallone revealed this one would not be another war film. He kept his word. He did. It's not a war film. Obviously, you can tell by what I read out of the write-up. Yeah, it's not a war film. The best way to describe it is it's someone who was special forces using his skills in a real life situation that's not a war. So, yeah. Originally, the title was Rambo 5 The Savage Hunt, where Rambo would lead a special forces kill team to hunt and kill a genetically engineered creature. And then I put as a side note, thank God that didn't happen. Yes, I am glad that didn't happen. I don't know where that crazy idea come from. It just wouldn't have worked in Rambo, would it? So, one of the things that's enjoyable about Rambo is that it's realistic to a point. I mean, obviously there's a slight bit of over the top. I mean, the fact that he can go in and kill a whole army and walk out. Yeah, obviously it's slightly ridiculous, but it would have been absolutely stupid if he was hunting down a genetically engineered creature. It would have been too similar to Predator, I think. Obviously in Predator was an alien, but it's pretty close, isn't it? It would have been very similar. And people would have just compared it to Predator. So it wouldn't have done well anyway, would it? Let's be honest. It nearly didn't happen, as in 2010, Stallone felt the character of Rambo had come full circle. Because at the end of the fourth film, he comes home. Which he does. At the end of the fourth film, you see him walking down the long path towards the family farm. So he's gone from the first film all the way round. And he's come back. So, yeah, he had a point. It did seem like that. But obviously with this film, it picks up right where that one finishes off. Well, I say right where that picks off. Not straight away. It picks up, years later, like 10 years later or whatever. But it picks up from the farm. So, it does work because it's not another war film. It flows nicely from where you last left him. Yeah, and then I just put a note here. It was on, it was off, right up until 2018, which it was, from 2008 right up until 2018, it was, we're doing it, we're not doing it. We're doing it, we're not doing it. There was delays due to Stallone doing an Expendables movie at one point, so they put it on the back burner. Then they wanted to change the idea, that one I come up with a minute ago, that came in at some point, and there was script rewrites and story rewriting here, there and everywhere. So it got put on and off, on and off. And like I say, there's even that part where he said about he felt that the character had come full circle, and that was in 2010. So that was another reason why it got put on the back burner. So yeah, I'm actually glad that he changed his mind. And I'm going to get into my thoughts here. First point I put, I enjoyed this film. I did. I enjoyed this film. The reason I enjoyed it was because it was a good old-fashioned action movie. It was just like films that Stallone's done in the past, like good old-fashioned action, plenty of fighting and high stakes and explosions and all the sort of things you expect from an action movie. And it felt like I was watching something from the 80s or 90s, that style of action. It was done just like that. And they're the sort of films I love. I go back to 80s and 90s movies all the time because they are the best action movies. I don't care what anybody says. There was less computer mucking about like you get now. It was all practical, real effects. All right, you got pyrotechnics, but the point is it's not done with a computer. It was real. So, I always prefer going back to them. And there was none of this agenda rubbish chucked in there and all that sort of crud. You know, it was done in a way where you watched a film and you enjoyed it and you was pumped. Like when you come out, you felt good. That's what I liked about these movies. And it's one thing I like about Stallone. He never fails to disappoint on that front. He gets it. He knows his genre. He knows Rambo. And you could argue, like with Rocky, the same difference, with the exception of Rocky 5, but we won't talk about that. He gets the difference. Like Expendables is another one. I mean, they're films that come out, in the 2000s, but they feel like a 90s movie, like a 90s action movie, because that's how he does them. He knows his craft and he does it well. So, yeah, I really did enjoy this film. I thought it was really good. Good, compelling story. A good way to explain how Rambo goes back into Rambo mode again, his reason behind it, and the stakes are high, but it's not a war. So it's good. It's a good continuation of his story, and I thought they'd done it really well. I'll put here, it was different from all the others. Again, going back to the war thing, it was different from all the others. Number one, he's just come back from the war. He kind of declares war on the sheriff and a small town. Second one, obviously, he goes back to Vietnam. Third one is Afghanistan. Fourth one is Burma. This one is in the US and Mexico. So it's very different. And it was nice to see a little change in direction. I think if he had done what he'd done with the others, it wouldn't have been as good a film, because it would have just been, well, okay, we've kind of seen this all before. Whereas in this film, trust me, anything you see in this film, you have not seen before. So, and I'll put here, tackled real issues such as kidnap, sex trafficking, post-traumatic stress disorder, done in a good story, real life things done well. And what I'm getting at there when I say that last point, one of my previous videos, when I said about the current state of cinema, one of my biggest issues is when they put real life agendas and politics above a good story. This film doesn't do that. It has them involved in the story, which is good. That's what you want. All of these points I've just made are all part of the story, and they're important points in the story, but in no way do they hinder the story. And this is when films are done well. This is my point. So, for example, the kidnap. So, like I said in the write-up, his foster daughter, or whatever you want to class her as, or stepdaughter, she gets kidnapped, and then she's used for prostitution. These are things that actually do happen. So he addresses that, and it's part of the story. It makes sense. There's a part where you see Stallone, he's struggling with post-traumatic stress, and you can see it. He's having flashbacks, and he's having panic attacks, and you see him taking medication for it. This is what you got to remember. He's not a young man anymore. This film is set, give or take, 10 years since the last one. He's now got grey hair. He looks old. He's getting old. And these things are now taking a toll on him. So it's realistic. Now, this part here, the next part, and this relates to what I've just said about he's getting old, it's affecting him, etc. The fact he changes his tactics as he's older. Right, now, for example, there's a part in the movie where, in fact, there's two parts in the movie where his age is a factor, and you see it. When he first gets to Mexico and he's looking for her, he basically gets surrounded by the cartel. Now, in post-Rambo films, there could be 20, 30 men. In this case, probably about 50. He would have took on loads of them, and possibly if there was 20, he would have beat them all and walked away, sort of thing. Whereas in this, he only gets to hit, I think, one guy, and then he gets a hammering. And you see it's a couple of days before he recovers from it. And even then, he's not fully recovered. And again, the age bit gets addressed later on, because when he takes them on, he does it in a way where his age won't be a factor. Obviously, as we know from the previous films, he's trained in guerrilla war tactics and he uses them. He basically brings them into his environment and he fights them on his terms. And the way that he does it is very believable because he knows the environment, they don't, which then means that his age doesn't become a problem. He's not so much fighting them hand to hand, although he is, but you know what I mean by that. He's not right in front of them punching him, etc. He's using his guerrilla war tactics, which makes sense with the character. You know how these things work. You're aging, so you turn the game so that it's in your favour. So it's very believable. Again, I've put out a good action movie. Like I've already said, it is a good action movie. If you haven't seen this, watch it. It is good. Especially if you're a Rambo fan, you should definitely watch this. Like I say, it's funny because I never thought that the last two would be as good as they have been. And they are. They're really good. So, and I don't know if he's going to do another one. I mean, when you watch the end of the fifth one, you're not really sure on what could happen there. It kind of leaves you to think about it yourself. So they could do another one. I don't know if they should, but they could do. And the last point I want to add here is at the moment, if you haven't watched it, it's free to watch on Amazon Prime at the moment. And it is free to watch in HD and 4K as well. So yeah, it's classed as a Prime movie. So if you've got Amazon Prime, this won't cost you. It is good. If you like your action films, and especially if you like Rambo, watch it. It's a great film. You won't be disappointed. It's very fast-paced. It goes very quickly, and the story is very enjoyable. I really liked it. So, I mean, I'm a Rambo fan anyway, but I mean, a lot of us would all say that Rambo 3 wasn't a great film because, let's be honest, it wasn't. Bits of it were okay, but it wasn't a great film. This, without a shadow of a doubt, is better than that. And like I said already, I would argue it's nearly as good as the fourth one. And the fourth one is really good as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, like I say, like I say with a lot of these things, if you've got time and you want to watch something that's a little bit action-packed, give it a watch. It is good, and I'm pretty certain you won't be disappointed by it. It did well in the box office, so it's obvious that it is a fairly good film. So, and in my opinion, a very good film. So, yeah, have a look at it. Right, I'm going to leave this one here anyway. I'll talk to you guys later. Nerdy Geezer out.